All right. Might want to take a look at the chat window for me, Chris.
I will.
Uh, we want to get started, or we want to give a few more minutes?
I think we can get started.
All right. Hey everyone. We're gonna switch gear a little bit here. The first 2 days, we talk about App Studio in general as a product, and talking about creating app from just template and then distributing it. So the rest of this, take this as the switch from learning about the product in general from 10,000 feet into looking at each of the component of the product in a very great details. By then, I wanted to start by just discussing every bit in App Studio as far as how it's being architecture. So I think Chris used this also in the beginning, so I wanted to just show it again. That so we all learned that this is there's AppStudio for ArcGIS, this purple box that we have per se that we're gonna open and see the content of it. So the AppStudio for ArcGIS we use to create custom app. We used to create a sample. We have the enterprise sample. We have our own templates even, and the way we access this App Studio for ArcGIS is by using the App Studio desktop, which all of you have installed and try to use. And the two component on the top, we have talked about CloudMake. Tina have shown you how to use the CloudMake. So you can, all of the apps that's been created using App Studio can be built and make the executable using CloudMake. And also, Chris has shown a great way on how to use the AppStudio player. You can use it for testing, distributing, and all different kind of cool stuff. So the apps are being played either in our AppStudio player or being used into CloudMake, and the box is AppStudio Desktop. So before I begin with all that, I want to talk a little bit about CloudMake. A lot of people have a question on how it is. So CloudMake service is a service that we in Esri host for you so that you don't have to do the local make yourself. You don't have to maintain all of that machine and services. So we have a lot of server in the cloud that are ready. I mean, all of the platform that support Macintosh, iOS, Android, Windows 32 and 64-bit, and even including Linux. So we have a job process when you click of that button, Cloud Make. What it does, it grabs the copy of your app from ArcGIS Online. So oftentimes, this is most of the mistake that I made, even myself in the beginning, is that I thought the CloudMake service is getting the copy of my local files, but it's actually getting the copy of in the cloud. So before you do any CloudMake, you need to upload your app first, so that all of the changes are updated in online, so that then the CloudMake service can grab that source code, and then we make a build out of it, and then we give the executable via the OTA website, or you can even get that file from in ArcGIS Online. So once the source code has been executed, and all of the executable also being shared in ArcGIS Online, we just have an OTA website so that you can grab that file, open it on the mobile device, and you can install it directly, or even share it like the way Tina did. Uh, so this is the box. This is the content of the box in AppStudio, inside AppStudio. But one thing I want to talk about is the Qt. Chris has mentioned that uh, everything we do is based off of the technology by the company called Qt. The one that we use, so it based off the C++, but as an AppStudio user, you're not even gonna see C++ at all. You're only gonna use the QML language, the Qt library that we use to create user interface. So it's as I said, currently we are using Qt version 5.13, and we're going to soon migrate to Qt 6 that is coming soon. Uh, as you said, this is C++ base, but all you need to do is the QML language to create user interface. And then the next one that we want to talk about is the AppStudio AppFramework. This is the library that we create. This is the library AppStudio team here in Redland and Melbourne are working to create the AppStudio framework. What is the AppStudio framework? The way we describe what is AppStudio framework is the gap between what Qt gives us. So we use Qt to do user interface and all of the library that they have, but we felt that there are missing things with what Qt provide and ArcGIS Runtime provide. So ArcGIS Runtime provide all of the mapping specific functionality, and Qt provide all the user interface. But still, between these two, there are still missing functionality that we need to create apps. Not just for you, but even ourselves. When we create Survey 123, when we build Quick Capture, when we build Companion, we built a lot of different apps. We felt like, oh, this is missing, and then we go ahead and build it ourselves to complement the gap so that it is a complete solution to create a native app. That's what basically says. Oftentimes we have to, for example, oftentimes we have to go and get the native language. For example, we built something for Android and iOS, and each of them has a different library. So we have to grab each of that library, and then we make it work in Qt, and then expose it in QML. So what are the things that we have in our framework? We have a lot of module. A couple of things I wanted to emphasize is, for example, biometric authentication. It seems simple, but it's actually different in every platform. So even in iOS itself, it has different platform. Some has Touch ID, some has Face ID, and we don't even want to get into Android, where Android has its own set of biometric authentication. So we have to take care of all that and expose it for you by just calling biometric authentication. And then behind the scene, there are a lot of C++ code that will take care of the cross-platform way. And then there's a Bluetooth connectivity, networking, and we're gonna talk more detail on this next week. But I just wanted to touch base on what we have. And the last piece that we have, the ArcGIS Runtime. So now it completes. So we have user interface, we have things that missing from both end, and we have mapping capability. Not all app would have mapping capability. Some of them use the mapping capability but don't even have use map. Some app use map as the main content of the app. So if you're not aware, ArcGIS Runtime is also has a C++ base underlying it, and they added their own mapping and GIS service, and then ArcGIS Runtime itself has many languages that they support. They support Android, Linux, iOS, Windows, and they support Java, WPF, .NET. The one that we are using is the ArcGIS Runtime for Qt, especially the QML side. So we're bringing in that library into AppStudio so that we can. I mean, this is an S3 product after all. So most of our customers are building apps with some sort of mapping functionality. As I said, this is ArcGIS Runtime has a lot of it's a different team than us, but we work really well together. So it has a lot of mapping technology. We're also going to talk about this in detail next week on all of the functionality that we can support. So on top of that, so now we have the underlying technology and what we have underneath. So on top of that, that's where either we or you create the user interface and the JavaScript code on top of that. So you create your own user interface. For example, this is the code that can be in the app, from as simple as the one on the left is the simplest app that we have, the Hello World app, that has the QML project. It has the app icon that you select in the profile, in the settings. There's the app info JSON that's pretty much uh, reflect all of the setting that you have in the setting, all of the different JSON file, and the my app.qml is where the code is. And on the right hand side, if you see, that is the AppStudio player source code. So we built the AppStudio player using AppStudio, and that's how the source code of one of the probably the most complicated app in AppStudio created. That's how the source code is being laid out. So on top of that, if you're using our template, where this is we create the template configuration. So in AppStudio, we could create some kind of a JSON file that would let you enter configuration. For example, what is the feature layer ID? What is the web map ID you want to use? And all of the function, all of that settings. We can grab that, and then in the code, we can use it as a way to dynamically load the data. So that is how the stack inside what is inside AppStudio. Uh, Talking about app configuration, so when you click on the setting page on every app, it is actually editing two files inside AppStudio. It's editing the app info JSON. App info JSON keep track of whether you enable location, whether you enable biometric authentication, whether you enable Bluetooth. All of that's true and false, and all of the configuration are being stored inside the app info JSON. You can make that changes on the user interface, or you can even make the changes on the JSON file itself. And there's also another file called item info.json. That is the information on the app as an ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise item. We store that, for example, the item ID, who the owner of the app, when was it being updated, and all of the sharing information. And this file, this 6 file, is the bare bone of an AppStudio app. You have an app icon in you have app icon, app info JSON, item info JSON. My app.qml is the main file that start your app. This for the source code. You have a QML project file and then a thumbnail. So at the very least, you need this file to start an AppStudio project. So that's all I wanted to cover, just based on regarding what we're gonna learn for the rest of this workshop. So for the rest of the workshop, we're gonna touch base from the very top, some of the user interface, some of the configuration, some of the app framework, and some of the ArcGIS Runtime SDK for Qt. Do we want to break for question, or we want to get into the QML, Chris?